It was a Tuesday morning in late fall, the kind of morning when the air feels crisp but not cruel, and the sun pours in soft through the glass front of Miller's Grocery. The little town hadn't changed much in years. The same hand-painted sign swayed slightly in the breeze. The bell above the entrance still jingled the same way it did back in 1973. Inside, the aisles were narrow but familiar, and the shelves carried more memory than merchandise. Henry Callahan pushed open the door slowly. He didn't rush anymore. At 90 years old, Henry had earned the right to move at his own pace. He used a four-wheel walker, the kind with the seat in the middle and the hand brakes. It made a slight creak as he moved forward, but Henry never minded. To him, that sound was a reminder that he was still walking, still breathing, still here. He wore a brown tweed coat that had seen decades of winters and a cap with faded emblem, the eagle, globe, and anchor of the United States Marine Corps. It wasn't for show. Henry had worn that symbol since 1951, when he was deployed to Korea as a young man with more conviction than armor. He didn't talk much about the war anymore, not because he forgot, because he remembered too well. Inside the store, the scent of ground coffee and fresh bread wrapped around him like an old friend. He paused by the front produce stand, glanced over the apples, and smiled faintly. Everything was slower now. He didn't come for groceries as much as he came for the rhythm of it. The familiar steps down familiar aisles, the chance to nod at the cashier, who'd been working there since the Clinton years. Henry made his way toward aisle 3. Cereal, that was his goal today. Raisin Bran. He liked the crunch, and it went easy with the pills he had to take in the morning. As he turned the corner, his walker clipped the edge of a cardboard display. Nothing fell, but the motion earned a glance from a young employee restocking cans. The boy didn't say anything, just looked at Henry like he was an exhibit. He didn't mind. He was used to being looked at, not seen, just looked at. It took him a minute to reach the cereal. His hands trembled a bit as he reached up, not quite high enough. He tried again, then a soft voice behind him. "Need a hand with that, sir?" It was the manager, a woman in her 40s, kind eyes, no makeup, sleeves rolled up. He nodded, and she handed him the box. He thanked her with a smile that barely moved his lips, but somehow said more than words. She didn't linger. She knew he preferred dignity to fuss. Box in hand, Henry turned his walker and started toward the register. It would take a while, and he planned for that. He didn't believe in rushing through small things. Not anymore. As he passed aisle 5, he noticed a child sitting cross-legged on the floor, play with a toy car while his mother browsed soup labels. Henry smiled but kept walking. A woman near the bakery asked if he needed help carrying his basket. He politely declined. It wasn't heavy. 1 box of cereal and a small bottle of aspirin. His walker had a pouch underneath the seat. It was designed for just this sort of errand. Each step echoed a rhythm he'd learned long ago. Foot, roll, pause, breathe. Not because he had to, but because it kept the days full. Moving gave him purpose. Purpose gave him peace. Outside, a breeze shook the trees lining Main Street. Inside, the bell jingled again as someone else entered. Henry was only halfway to the front counter, but he didn't mind. He was used to taking his time. He didn't know yet that someone behind him, a young man in a hoodie, was moving faster than anyone should in a grocery store. He didn't know the boy would grow impatient, that voices would rise. But that part of the story hadn't happened yet. For now, it was just Henry, and aisle 3, and a quiet morning in a quiet town, where dignity still moved slow, and time waited for those who'd earned it. The moment came without warning. Just as Henry reached the middle of aisle 5, where the paper towels were stacked to the ceiling, a sharp voice cut through the quiet like a blade. "Hey, come on, man, move it." Henry didn't stop walking. His eyes stayed forward. One hand on the walker's rubber grip, the other relaxed at his side. His steps were small, slow, but steady. The voice came again, louder. "You're blocking the whole aisle. I'm going to be late because of you." People turned. A few froze. Some pretended to read labels on soup cans, though no one could focus. The voice belonged to a young man, maybe 22, baseball cap turned backward, gym shorts in cold weather, earbuds dangling from his neck. He was holding a can of energy drink in one hand and his phone in the other. His face was red, not from embarrassment, but frustration, the kind of raw impatience that doesn't think before it speaks. Henry still didn't react. He didn't even glance behind him. He simply moved forward, one shuffle at a time. The wheeled walker rolled gently over the linoleum. The rubber tires squeaked slightly at each turn of direction. To Henry, this wasn't new. He had seen loud boys before. In Korea, in Detroit during the riots, in the factories where he worked for 30 years. Noise didn't scare him. It never had. But to the others in the aisle, it was different. The silence grew heavy. A woman with a toddler pulled her child close. A man in a suit coat holding a frozen lasagna hesitated, unsure if he should say something. The young man, noticing the attention, only grew louder. "Jesus," he muttered. "This is ridiculous. Why do people even come out when they can't walk?" Henry's lips didn't move. He kept going. A few more feet. He didn't stop to explain. He didn't need to. Every slow step he took was its own answer. The young man huffed. "I got places to be, old man. You think the world revolves around you just 'cause you fought in a war or something." Henry didn't stop. To many, it might have seemed like he didn't hear. But Henry had heard every word. He just chose not to give it power. In his world, dignity wasn't loud. It was quiet, unshakable. Near the front of the store, the cashier noticed a commotion. She craned her neck, trying to see what was happening without leaving her station. An older man in the bread aisle watched closely, his jaw clenched but his feet still. No one moved. No one spoke. Not yet. The aisle held its breath. Henry moved 2 steps more. Then 2 more. The walker made its quiet, familiar sound against the tiles, each turn of the wheels sounding steadier than the last. He was past the worst of the aisle now. A few more steps, and the young man could have slipped by, but the kid didn't want to pass. He wanted a reaction. He wouldn't get one. The boy scoffed, rolled his eyes, and turned sharply toward another aisle, muttering curses under his breath. His sneakers squeaked as he stomped away, still frustrated, still unaware of the silence he'd left behind. And for a moment, no one said anything. Henry stopped briefly, adjusted the pouch beneath his walker, and kept going. No expression on his face. No anger. No fear. He had learned long ago that moments like these didn't need words. They just needed endurance. Behind him, the air was still thick. The bystanders were still frozen. But in their stillness, a strange sort of reverence began to bloom. Something unsaid but deeply felt. A few people glanced at each other, almost ashamed they hadn't intervened. Not because Henry needed saving, but because silence in the face of disrespect had suddenly become too loud. Henry reached the end of the aisle and turned. He made his way slowly toward the checkout counter, unaware, or perhaps deeply aware, of the crowd now behind him, still watching, still holding their breath. He never looked back. He didn't need to. He knew who he was. Henry Callahan kept walking toward the front of the store, his steps unhurried, steady, and calm. He passed the checkout counters one by one, never lifting his eyes, never glancing back. His wheeled walker made its soft rolling sound as it moved along the tiles, the quiet rhythm of a man who had lived through harder days than this. Then, from the opposite end of the store, a figure stepped forward. Tom Devereaux was 74 years old, retired railroad man, Vietnam veteran. His back was straighter than most men his age, and his hands, though weathered and thick with years of labor, still knew the meaning of discipline. He had been in the bread aisle when he heard the shouting earlier. He hadn't said a word. Not then. He had simply watched, measured, waited. But now, as Henry reached the final checkout lane, Tom walked up. No cart, no groceries, just purpose in his stride. He didn't call Henry's name, didn't raise a hand or make a sound. He simply stopped in front of the older man, his boots solid on the tile, and slowly lifted his right hand to his brow. A salute, not rushed, not for show, but full and steady. The kind of salute that said more than words ever could. Henry looked up then. Their eyes met. 2 old soldiers. 2 different wars. One understanding. Henry didn't return the salute. He didn't have to. The look in his eyes said enough. It was a kind of look that spoke of trenches and tents, of letters from home and brothers who never came back. It spoke of mornings when silence meant survival, and nights when the stars looked too far away. No one spoke, no one moved, and still no one filmed. There were no phones lifted, no cameras blinking, no viral moment to post. Just people standing still, watching something real, something sacred. The young man, the one who had shouted, had wandered back near the front. Maybe curiosity brought him back. Maybe guilt. But when he saw Tom saluting the man he had mocked minutes earlier, something in his face shifted. He didn't say a word, just looked down, turned, and walked out the automatic doors. No more yelling, no more muttering, just the soft sound of his sneakers on the sidewalk outside. Inside the store, something had changed. It was the same old Miller's grocery, same checkout counters, same flickering overhead lights. But now there was a quiet in the air that didn't feel empty. It felt full, full of respect, full of memory, full of something people didn't always know how to name, but could feel deep in their bones. The cashier wiped her eyes, though no one had seen her cry. A teenage boy in the candy aisle stood a little taller. A woman whispered something to her daughter about watching closely, as if this moment had more weight than any Sunday sermon. And Henry? He gave a small nod to Tom, then turned back to his cart and kept moving. The line ahead of him was short. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for his wallet, but his eyes were clear, focused, calm. Tom didn't follow him. He didn't say a word. He turned and walked out the same way he had come in, slow and steady. And the moment passed, but it didn't disappear. Long after the two veterans had gone, one back to his quiet apartment on Maple Street, the other to his truck parked outside, the story lingered, not because someone captured it, but because everyone there carried it with them. It became something people told their kids, something they remembered when they saw someone walking slow, something they thought about when the world seemed too rushed, too loud, too impatient. Because sometimes the loudest lessons don't come from shouting. They come from silence, from a salute held just a second longer, from the way two old men meet eyes and share 50 years of knowing in one quiet glance, and from the truth that not all heroes wear uniforms anymore. Some just carry a cane, wear worn-out shoes, and walk a little slower than the rest of us, but they stand taller. Always. If you enjoyed hearing Henry and Tom's story today, please consider subscribing to Old Soldier Story. Here, we share real moments of courage, respect, and life lessons from veterans and everyday heroes like Henry. Join our community to hear more stories that remind us of the strength in quiet dignity and the power of standing tall, no matter our age. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a story that touches the heart and honors those who came before us. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next story.